I think that we'll just get started. Welcome everybody to the CJ Ivy Town Hall Forum with the Candidates. So this is an opportunity for us to a little bit of kind of let our hair down and talk about the main issues of our campaign and the main topics that we have. And also, I wanted to put out there that we're here to be
The
out with each
host.
other, but of course to ask each other questions. So we don't need to really go heavily into introductions and where our platform is and stuff like that. We can get right away into the topics if we want to. So I just want to get agreement with everyone. You want to start your introduction, and then I'll get everybody else.
Okay. I'm Meadow Martell. I'm the mayor of Cave Junction, and I'm running for re-election.
Yeah, hi everybody. Christopher Hall. I'm running for mayor.
Not a chance she's going to speak.
Okay.
Sorry, Gunter.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's John here. My volume.
Sounds good. Good to have you on, John.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Okay, is there anybody else that's on? Let's see. We have Dan is here. Dan Mancuso. Hi, Dan. Michelle Binker. All right. Good to see you. Great. You can unmute and say hi.
Hi, good evening, Gunter. Thank you for having us.
Hey, great. Good to have you aboard. All right. About 12 of us in the room here. So great. All right. Sorry about this being so last minute. It was in the IV paper and I thought it wouldn't be, so I kind of scrambled yesterday, and I'm kind of looking, since I watched the last two forums with IVCDU, they did a nice job of putting that together. And so I wanted to see if we just go a little bit further and just more or less have a little bit of dialogue. And I think it's important for us to work together as a team, even though we're running in opposition to each other. I think a lot of what we're doing and our concerns for our community are very amicable, are very up there, you know. And so we need to treat each other with more respect, though we do need to ask each other the difficult questions. We can answer them or not. If you feel you don't feel the need to answer the question, then feel, you know, that you can pass on that. So, but the important thing is for us to get through a few topics, and I think the most important topic that has been, along with the Slater fire and public safety, is the homelessness issue, which has been plagued for us, which has been an issue for us for quite some time. Oh, there's Sherry. Hi, Sherry.
Hi.
So we're just getting started, really. We want to get on the topic of homelessness. At least that's what I'm requesting. That is my request. If anybody has a topic that they want to get on other than homelessness right at this moment, then we can go ahead and do that. But I sent out a email to Jesse Meadow and Tina and Chris Hall. Chris Hall had a really nice dialogue on Facebook a couple of days ago. So I wanted to cover a little bit of that. And he particularly says here that the homeless situation requires numerous public and private agencies, churches, and nonprofit organizations across the Rogue Valley working together. It is likely higher in the Illinois Valley that experience of rural isolation, and close to 20% of households living are at a poverty level. So there's a lot of people that here are just, you know, on the brink of being homeless too. So it was discovered some 30 years ago that in order for public and private agencies, churches, and nonprofits organizations to be successful in their area of work or in their missions, they had to coordinate and work together. Domestic violence, substance abuse, food insecurity, homelessness on the streets, police patrol, and mental health services, etc. Maybe I'll just start out with Chris. And Chris, would you give us a little bit of feedback on your sense and your feelings in regards to the homelessness and how that relates to the CJ government and city council?
Thanks, Gunter, for hosting this. And, you know, homelessness is an issue in every city, in every country, all over the world. And so we're not alone in having to confront the issue. There's always going to be a certain percentage of people who are homeless for two reasons. One is due to mental health and addiction problems, and the other overarching concern is when external forces happen and people get clobbered with things beyond their control and they get knocked out of their homes, and they end up homeless. And a lot of times there's both. And it's not a hard and fast rule that I'm aware of, but there seems to be a trend where there's two major reasons. My experience is that people tend to be more sympathetic to the folks who are forced onto the street through no fault of their own, or at least by virtue of things that they couldn't control. And there's less tolerance for people who get there because of mental health issues or addiction issues. But that, again, that's not necessarily a hard, fast rule. The city is just one entity out of many entities that could have a positive impact on trying to resolve the issue. And as I had mentioned in the response to Sally Brumble, who asked the question on Jimmy's Facebook page, A Better Cave Junction, that there are many agencies, nonprofits, churches, and so forth, that ought to work together on some level to try and solve a common problem that we all care about. And it doesn't mean that the churches are doing the same jobs as the nonprofit organizations that deal with like domestic violence or substance abuse, or the public safety agencies that have to deal with incarceration issues, the churches that are feeding people and families and providing shelter and stuff. Everyone's got a different job, and there's a division of labor, but coordinating all those services more effectively, which in and of itself might be overwhelming, is a worthwhile effort to try to accomplish. And a city government can't be everything to everyone. It can't be a nanny state, and it can't be going out there and trying to do it all. But there may be some things that the city of Cave Junction can do alongside the city of Grants Pass, the other cities in Jackson County, as well as the counties, where coordination efforts can be approached and worked on. I want to be very careful that I don't think that this is a problem that can get solved in any particular period of time. I think it's a process that we might consider entering into, working together. And one of the things I think is that we accept that we'll always have a homeless population. It's just how do we deal with it?
Right.
Those are just some of my thoughts. Thanks.
Thank you. Minnow, how do you feel about the homeless issue here, and what kind of collaboration do you think would it take to help begin the process of resolution?
Well, I think Chris actually summarized it pretty well. It was not really any new information. As we all know, it's happening in every town and city across the United States. I talk a lot to cities about what they're doing. I've not found a perfect answer or even a good answer. I think I would agree completely that it's going to take more than one organization to pull it together. We do have a nonprofit organization in Cave Junction, CJ Homeless Alliance, and right now they're not very active. I think people, if they wanted to get involved, that would be a good place to start, because a nonprofit has the options of getting grant help, looking at ideas, especially if they can bring people together. That's one thing that could happen. I know that there's some examples happening nearby, like in I think it's either Medford or Ashland. They're looking at putting in like a campground, a homeless campground that's monitored and have pretty clear guidelines about how long they could stay and how they're utilized. there are lots of ideas out there. I think we need to be careful because we are a very small town. We don't have a lot of resources, not the same ones that larger places have. I think some of the things we're doing, like making sure that we have a food bank so that people that are homeless and people that are hard up can get food. And I know that CJ Patrol is doing a pretty good job of getting what resources, supplies like sleeping bags and tents out to them. Other than that, I think the idea is the more we bring people together and people want to talk to about it, but it's a pretty hot topic in a lot of ways, and not everybody wants to help them. Some people just want to, you know, give them a ticket to the next city or something, and that doesn't help anybody. So nothing really new there, but other than awareness that we really do need to be looking at it.
When I was in Petaluma, California, this was going way back in 1990, the city was going through a whole kind of a revitalization. They wanted to revitalize the old part of town and take care of a lot of their rundown historic buildings and also create commerce. And they ended up getting into a partnership with Sonoma County, I think it was Sonoma County Commerce, Chamber of Commerce. And they, because of what was going on in San Francisco and Marin County, they were droves of homeless people that were moving in to Petaluma. And it more than tripled within a year to 2 years. And so they realized that they couldn't do much on their local improvement and kind of doing a facelift of Petaluma is what they were working on until they had some kind of a comprehensive solution working with the homeless coming into the area. The city had initially taken out because of that problem, chose to initiate the organization to bring everybody in and to help set leadership roles with all of the organizations. So that is kind of a question that I have. How do you see the city of Cave Junction and the council participating as a partner with the homeless problem? Meadow, I'll let you answer that, and I'll bounce back to Chris and then Jesse, and then anybody else that has any questions on that.
Well, I think one role that the city could potentially play, and that would be as a convener, you know, getting people together. That's one possibility. I think that's probably the major role, a convener and a facilitator, because it really is going to take a lot more people than just the city or just one nonprofit. It's going to take a lot, you know, as Chris was saying, the churches and individuals, pull them together too about looking at it. But I also think we need to be careful about prioritizing what other resources and roles that the city needs to play, homelessness being only one of them.
Right, correct. But it is quite a significant issue, and it really feeds into, how shall I say, the beautification and the business, expanding the business and destination point for Cave Junction. So it really kind of ends up being a big problem for the CJ City Council and also the Chamber of Commerce. So I'll bounce back to Chris and then to Jesse on that question.
I'm going to cede my time to Tina, who had her hand up.
Oh, great. Sorry, Tina, I didn't see your hand. Go ahead, Tina.
Okay, well, I have a few points I'd like to make regarding the homelessness in Cave Junction and the Illinois Valley. First of all, as Meadows mentioned, we do have the Cave Junction Homeless Alliance, which has a group of very dynamic and dedicated individuals working. But right now, because of the pandemic, things have really slowed down. People are not able to jump on Zoom calls like we do because they don't have an account, or their schedules can't align. So it's kind of slowed down right now, but that's the reason for it. It's not because people have lost interest in it. Secondly, a point that should be made that our homeless here in the Valley are primarily homegrown. They're more than half of them are actually from here. Their families are here. You know, they were born and raised here, or they came here at a very young age. So people have made comments about trying to, you know, move them out, put them on a bus, whatever. They're going to come right back because this is where their family is. This is what they know, and this is where they feel comfortable. So I think it's important that we take the lead and help them. To that end, there's two things. One is that there was a symposium held out here about a month ago that was coordinated through, I believe it was IVCDO, but I may be wrong on that. But it brought in UCAN and options, and you know, it had a number of the players to provide the services for the people that are challenged, whether they're homeless or not, to try and help hook them up with assistance, so that instead of giving a hand out, we were, as a community, giving a hand up, which I think is very important. If people want to get off the street, you know, they have a means to do so. At least we're starting to provide that. And then the third thing is, I know Jesse has mentioned on his platform about how he is going to be reaching out to the county commissioners and partnering with them. And that's something that, although I've only been in the city council for 9 months, that's something I've been doing. And most recently I was speaking with one of the commissioners, and we were talking about homeless, and they mentioned that there's a $55 million grant that's being given to Southern Oregon. It's described as being providing housing for the people who were displaced from the fire, primarily for Jackson County, they say. However, this commissioner told me that because the Slater fire was so close to Jackson County, and because they have a love of our area in their heart, they're actually going to try and get some of that money and use it to make housing available for whoever needs it, wink, wink. So basically what they would like to do is provide a local venue with housing for our homeless here in the Illinois Valley. So I thought that was very good news, and it shows that we're really moving in the right direction.
Thank you, Tina. Chris, can I defer to Jesse and then get back to you? Okay, great. Jesse, since Tina put you on, I'd like to hear from you.
I think that the candidates so far, you know, Meadow, Christopher, Tina, have all said some really positive things going forward. I don't doubt that any of us have pure intentions when it comes to coming up with creative ways to help solve the issue of homeless in our town here. You know, for me, it's a little more personal, though I've never been homeless. I have coached a dozen or more kids who are or have been homeless. And so to coach those kids that were living on the street when they came into my program, or postgraduate kids that have graduated from the high school and not been able to better themselves and found their way on the street, has really hit home for me. It's one of the reasons why I'm running. Not to take it out of Tina's hands, what she was saying there, I definitely don't want to redo anything that she's done, but I would love to be that liaison with our county commissioners going forward. There's some things I think we can do locally to help. Our town is desperately in need of different resources, more creative resources, you know, resources being job training, interview training, things. You know, we have a large industry here with the hemp and the marijuana that we have in our valley. If we could train, using that as a city-sponsored event, to train how to interview, how to answer the questions properly, and how to be a professional worker, then we might be able to give that hand up like Tina and Meadow were talking about, and Chris as well, to get them moving forward and back on their own feet. Those are the small things that I think that our city can help do, but it's a much bigger problem than just our city. We need our county to step in. And I agree completely with Christopher when he says that we need to bring Grants Pass in, we need to bring Medford in. I read something that he had posted earlier in the week. I do believe it was Chris that posted it. days are getting fuzzy now, but we are part of the Rogue Valley. Chris, you can correct me if I'm wrong there, but I do believe you had said that. We need to tie in with Jackson County, not just Josephine County. It's a Southern Oregon problem, and we need to figure out how to get a hold of it. It's not going to happen in a year. It's not going to happen in 2 years. It's not going to happen in 4 years. It has to be a step-by-step, goal-driven program with people who just won't give up. If we can find those right people, get those right people in office, get the right volunteers that won't give up, get the on-the-job training for the people that need it, and get that interview training for the people that need it, and help get them in a job in a situation to where they can pay their bills, they can find themselves in a lower income housing situation, we all win.
Right. Thank you, Jesse. Chris?
Hey, may I ask a question, Gunter? John here.
Sure. Go ahead, John, please.
Thanks. I'm sorry there's no picture, but I need to fix the camera to this computer.
Well,
So
we
I think
everybody
homelessness.
here?
What? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, John.
Homelessness is seen as one reason why folks travel through our city and don't stop. And that for some is a major economic argument for doing something about the homeless. Of course, it's not only the homeless that causes this problem, but the more on the ground mental health services. I hope Options is going to expand their program here soon. As you may know, I was part of the Homeless Alliance with Jimmy and Laura and many others, and Christine actually. We had great plans for getting transitional housing and then working towards more permanent housing and so on. We were starting to develop a program and a proposal really for the program, put great stock on developing the pool facility, and I'm aware of some of the arguments against it, but on the other hand, I don't really know the main reason why it never progressed, because that would have vastly improved our services and our opportunity for services. And Jimmy had great plans for the pool property. So I'd like to hear from anybody who knows what happened to the car camping facility we're planning at the pool.
Chris, do you want to?
I can't answer that question. It would be Meadow or Tina probably.
Okay, then we'll start with Tina.
Hi, John. Thanks for your question. And I'm sorry, Gunther, I should have thanked you for bringing us all together like this. It's a great opportunity to just relax and talk. What happened with the pool property is that property was actually given to the city by the county. And when that was done, the county placed a restriction on it, and it was zoned as recreation only.
Yep.
And that's something that we as a city cannot change. That has to be done by the county. And the county decided it would be better to just fill it in. And I believe there's more to it that I'm not aware of. Correct, Meadow?
No, that's pretty much outlines it. It was not only that it had to be recreation only, it had to be outdoor recreation only. So
Right.
it wasn't even the possibility of covering the pool because there were people interested in. But I did do a tour of the pool facility, and it was hundreds of $1,000s away from being redeemable. It had been thoroughly trashed and thrashed. But I think what the main point you were making is having like an RV homeless park there, parking area would not have met the stipulations about why the city had the pool property. And in fact, what happened was the county took it back because there was a stipulation in the agreement that if it wasn't used for outdoor recreation within a certain time period, that it reverted back to the county, and that's what happened.
Okay, thanks. That confirms what I thought happened. On the other hand, there are all sorts of reasons why any property is inappropriate for one reason or another. Not in my backyard being one of them. And so our first task maybe is one of the first tasks is to identify properties that could be converted. And anyway, that's what I'm looking forward to happening, because I'm so sorry that the alliance has had to break up now. It just didn't prove feasible. And other things have happened too, which are not so good. So anyway, I thoroughly endorse anyone who tries to do something about this problem. It really is a matter of human dignity. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, John. Does anybody else want to discuss that topic? As more
I'll
interest.
just make a quick note. Even if that facility was given to a nonprofit organization to operate a homeless facility, that would include surely a security issue, a boarding issue, food, housing. You need $250,000 just to handle a small number of people every year for an annual budget. And so I think the services, it's one thing to get the property, the services every year would be very expensive. And so cracking the nut on the bottom line and where that money's coming from, I think that's a worthy goal. I don't know, a new nonprofit that's developing a track record isn't going to be raising a whole ton of money like that at first, but I think that's probably the biggest issue, is the ongoing operating and personnel expenses that would be required to make it function. Thanks.
Yeah, I know that was a challenge for the Petaluma City Council and, well, all of the partnerships that they had, but it was pretty significantly resolved because of they had about 60% of the volunteers that came from the churches. So as far as manpower and volunteerism stuff, that they just had to do some building, some rooms, and they took a grocery store. Actually, I think it was Grocery Outlet at the time when it was first started then. So they had moved because the location wasn't bad. They moved into more of the central part of town where it was on the fringes of town. And that's where they wanted to bring the homeless people to, is outside or away from the main part of town, but still be close enough because they like to travel in. So there was a lot of amazing negotiations and stuff. The homeless people themselves started getting very enthusiastic and supporting monitoring, being in monitoring and leadership positions within the homeless community itself. So it was an amazing energy-filled opportunity. I really got caught up in it. I was really busy with other things, but I participated and volunteered a few times with it. So one last question on that is, in regards to that experience, how do you see the CJ City Council initiating a workshop to bring in partners? At least get the ball started, say, here's something, let's go ahead and get all of these partners together and have a workshop and invite everybody. How do you feel the CJ City Council would fit that?
I'll answer that, or I'll start to answer that. I know that on the next city council meeting, I'm going to be asking for council people to, and anyone else that is interested, submit ideas for workshops or projects that we want to see going forward. And the fourth Monday of November, around whatever the fourth Monday is, we're going to do a workshop where we look and prioritize what projects the city and other residents want to move into next. And certainly I would imagine that homeless might come up.
Okay. Chris, if you were mayor, what would you recommend anyway?
Well, probably meet either in Grants Pass or somewhere central where folks from Jackson County and Josephine County can come together. We could drag everyone to Cape Junction. But I think finding a place where the different agencies and counties and cities could consider coming together would be probably a central location. Maybe put together a committee of about 7 people or something like that in Cape Junction that's comprised of people who have qualifications to be able to like discuss and handle this. So like Jimmy Evans and Laura and other folks who've been involved in the past, maybe, who, and it doesn't have to be, I don't think necessarily city residents who would be on that committee because it's a countywide problem. And those people will come together and discuss and make recommendations that are both in the short term that have to deal with like issues that we have, like what's going on in the park and what's going on at the corner of River Street and 199, and but also longer term issues where we try to work on the long-term issues of why homelessness keeps cropping up. And so like one thing to put out the fire that we have, but it's also trying to avoid, you know, stacking leaves and sticks to build more. And so, you know, addressing the issue locally, but then also seeing if we can't work with other cities and counties and addressing the issue in a larger regional fashion. I think the city's best efforts are in coordination. It's not in spending money, and it's not in trying to incarcerate our way out of it. And but I definitely think that reaching out to professionals who deal with this issue would be a good choice. Thanks.
Can I come back on that, Gunter, just briefly?
Yes, go ahead, John.
Firstly, as you may know, we had the warming center at the Methodist Church a few years back, and that proved unworkable for the church, let's say. And indeed it was, we were running out of volunteers fast. So warming centers seem to be going out, at least in what I've read in Oregon, in favor of more permanent kind of shelters. However, when I said property, we need to find a property, what I was meaning was that the vision I shared with Jimmy was that we would use the parking lot of the pool, not the pool itself necessarily, in the first place anyway, but the parking lot for, particularly for women and children in their cars camping, of which we have unfortunately more than we would like. And so the reason why a building is useful is for things like toilets and showers and so on, but that's in that's in the future. And initially, we just need to get these people, particularly mums and children, into places of safety. And so one of the problems with the pool was that it had an inadequate fence around it. So I just wanted to round that off with those ideas. It's the graduated incremental response, first find a place of safety, and then consider how we can improve that place. Thanks.
Thank you, John. Maybe we should go to public safety, if you all agree. A lot has changed, a lot has gotten better for certain since 2012 and 13. I remember that's when we started the neighborhood watches here on Ken Rose, and then we in 2014 we followed at the time Sheriff Gil Gilbertson's plan to create a community watch. And so the relationship is still going. The last couple of years, I know thanks to Tina, she helped with the community watch program. There's still a few people that are around, but kind of burned out. And it's challenging to find leadership that will take over. And that's when you know you've really done a good job. And it's when you have people that you can rotate your job to, and you can step back, you know. And I haven't quite gotten there with the community watch program, but we did build a charter. So we have a template to start off from. So I wanted to especially thank Tina. She was our first chairperson. for the Community Watch program. How do you see the money that we need? We really need to know the resident CJ or Illinois Valley officer out here, you know. So how do you see the city in acquisitioning another deputy, you know, to be on backup? Is that a viable question, or does anybody want, or does anybody have a question that they'd like to ask everybody? That was big silence there.
I'll take a crack at it. It's obviously, we all know that it's just a money issue, and it's just where's the money going to come from. The discussion about, like, the perennial discussion about why Cave Junction doesn't have its own police force is because we don't have the money. It's just really expensive. There's, you know, the deputies are expensive, the jails are expensive, the expensive. The sheriff provides excellent service at a very fair price, and getting enhanced policing, which just means more, costs money, and public safety is probably one of the most expensive services out there. It's an unfortunate circumstance that an area that's really isolated and has experienced generational poverty tends to have a lot of crime also. The poverty and the isolation conspire to create a lot of crime. So the poorer areas seem to have more crime. The more wealthy areas seem to have less. And so it's an unfortunate fact that this inverse relationship of money and crime happens. And so you don't have the money, we don't have the money to pay for the increased amount of crime that we get because of the lack of money. And it's not an easy way out. What I've been told is that if there is more, if there's a more of a tax base where people are paying more money, meaning, like, you know, increasing a population, then with like more commercial and residential development, that you can grow your way out of the problem. I'm not so sure about that. If the housing and the commercial development that happens over a long period of time brings more people in who have enough money to be active in the community, and you're not just housing more homeless people that are, or families that are struggling, then you know, there may be less of an inclination for more crime. But the bottom line is that it's a money issue, and I don't think anybody's really ever been able to solve that.
So we're looking at, what is it, about $170,000 now for one deputy?
Yeah, 165.
65 right now. So you're looking at around.
Actually, Gunnar, may I jump in here? Gunnar?
Yeah, go ahead, Dan.
Gunnar, may I jump in here?
Yeah.
So actually, this problem is very easily solved. If you go back to when Cave Junction had its own police force, it goes back to, I want to say it might have been Lyndon Johnson, but it might have been Richard Milhouse Nixon. There was a thing to enforce law enforcement, or to provide law enforcement funds to small communities. And that's where Cave Junction got its money. And when that money stopped coming in right around 1980, it's because the city stopped applying for it. And so we do have an ability to get federal grants. There's a lot of money out there, federal grants, actually, to provide law enforcement for the city of Cave Junction. And actually, if you look at the neighborhoods who don't have crime, those neighborhoods have high property values. And they have high property values because they have law enforcement and good schools. So it's a very simple problem. You just have to find someone that has the will and the desire to actually go out and deal with it. So my question to all of the candidates is, what are you going to do?
I'll jump in and start. Partner, right, I can tell you right now, I'm going to get with Meadow on Monday, and we're going to do some research on this. Okay with you, Meadow?
Yep, that's fine.
Okay. I also wanted to contribute that we have a city staff who is really pretty darn good about sourcing new revenue. For example, our bulk water sales, which were being sold at 1 cent per gallon, They increased it, I believe it was 2017 or thereabouts. They increased the bulk water sales to 3 cents a gallon. And it generated a lot more revenue than what we had thought it would. And which resulted in our being able to have the ability to pay our loan for the new golf course, and along with some other funding that we got, pretty much pay it close to paying it in full. So we're not going to have that loan for very long. But what I was thinking is if we're able to source that much revenue, which was, I believe, $235,000, there's a couple deputies right there, or two, or one and a half at least. Okay, I'm done.
Yeah, it was, the bulk water sales was at 237 almost a month ago, and they haven't quit selling bulk water sales. So I know that those figures have increased.
Yeah, I live right next door to the bulk water sale dispenser. So yeah, there's still trucks coming all day, every day.
I want to just put a cautionary note in there, is that it's not just a matter of getting one deputy or another deputy. There's a lot of other resources that need to go along with that, like offices, supervision. And in some ways, I think that's why it's been working really well for us to work with the Josephine County Sheriff's Department, because they can provide a lot of that resources that help coordinate the effort. And I, right at this point, think if we can expand our relationship with them, that we might be able to add stuff even faster.
Well, yeah, I didn't mean to have our own police force. I was talking about in cooperation with the Josephine County Sheriff's Department.
Oh, okay, good. Because some people do think we should have our own police force.
No. The
No, I'm not
Sheriff's
saying you
Department
do, but a
looking
lot
at
of people
that
think
line.
we should.
Really? Huh. Okay.
I've heard that a lot. Like, oh, so many years ago, we had 6 people on the police
Yeah,
force.
but that's what people are all talking about, in the past. This is what we did in the past. And we've got to look to the future. We got to, what we've got is working now. Now, how can we take it to the next level?
So this kind of leads to the question where Chris Hall proposed that he didn't want to see sales to the marijuana clients. So so that would probably take out a pretty large percentage of the bulk of that that revenue that's coming in.
I'm fairly certain that that's illegal. You can't discriminate on who you're going to sell. So you're either going to sell to the public and everybody, or you're going to sell to nobody.
And right now we sell water to the Kirby Water District.
Oh, right. Sure. So, Chris, do you have any input on that?
You know, I am morally against.
Hey, also, if I could, the reason the bulk water sale rate was increased in the first place was because of the increased traffic and the damage to the road.
I'm morally against selling the city water to the cannabis or the hemp industry. I think that if you don't have the water on site as part of a water right, some other form, then you just should be going somewhere else to do your farming. There's a huge problem with growing hemp on the west of the Cascades. The use of the water that has been coming out of our watersheds has been extraordinary. And the cannabis industry, I believe, ought to be limited insofar as the water use is concerned. And there's a mistaken understanding, at least insofar as I believe, that just because it rains a lot during the winter, that we have all this water that we can use to farm. And if we're going to use the water to farm, I believe that if we're going to prioritize the use of that, it should be for food. And farms that can source the water from the location where the farming is happening, that ought to be prioritized. I think trucking water to go and subsidize or provide water to farms that don't have it, that are growing cannabis, I'm just against it. I think it's wrong. I think it's the wrong use of the water. I do think And I will again thank you, Meta, for correcting me about the families in Kirby that run out of water. I definitely think that providing them the treated water that the city creates, that's a good and a proper use for it. You know, we can agree, we can disagree on this matter, but I don't support using the city water for that. The argument has been made that, well, then the scofflaws will just go and steal the water, and they'll just pump it out of Forks, or they'll pump it out of like somebody's water right, which is illegal. And whether it comes out of the city's wells or the city's, you know, water supply, or it comes out of somebody else's, it's still coming out of the ground, it's coming out of the watersheds. And there's got to be a limit to it. And we can discuss this issue. I just don't support it, and maybe just get outvoted. Fine.
Yeah.
I'd like to speak up here. So I, growing up in the Illinois Valley, I didn't grow up in Cave Junction. I grew up in Selma. Went away for school, came back to Cave Junction. I was one of those families. All summer long, they had to have water trucked in. And I mean, at the later time when my parents were still there, they were getting it here in bulk water sale, but early on it was getting trucked from Grants Pass. There's not a way to separate if it's going to a marijuana or a hemp farm versus if it's going to that family in O'Brien that has a low water table, or that family in Kirby that's not on the main water line, or that family in Selma that needs it to survive. There's no way to do that. And so if you're going to, and I understand it's a precious resource, and I agree that it's a precious resource, but it's one of the things that is needed to survive. And if you're going to stop that, you're going to chase people away. And chasing the people away that have been in this valley for the last 40, 50, 60 years, it's not the way to do it. I strongly oppose the thought of stopping bulk water sales for that reason alone. I understand. I don't disagree with the fact that it's valuable and that it's precious. I agree with that completely. I definitely disagree with giving it away for free, or, which, you know, it's not being proposed tonight, or stopping it altogether. You're going to hurt families. That's not what any of us are here to do.
I jump in, Gunter?
Yeah, go ahead.
Knowing something about this is my professional career. First of all, I have every sympathy with the views that have been expressed. And of course, you're right, Jesse, that we need to support those people who need to live. However, Chris is also right in the sense that cannabis growers are not well known for being, shall we say, parsimonious with their water, as the sort of people that you were describing were, Jesse. There is, you know, it doesn't have to be a black or white. You can have gradations in those people who need the water because they need the water to live, as you were describing, Jesse. And you can have those who are designated as cannabis farmers and so forth, and you have different rates. This is absolutely commonplace elsewhere. You don't have to be black and white at all. And that would perhaps encourage some of the cannabis farmers to investigate and adopt the ideas of regenerative agriculture on their land, which would be vastly to the benefit of everybody. There's one last point I want to make about, that is that the huge hike in water rates that we experienced, 2 years ago now, is I can tell you, is bitterly resented, particularly by shop owners, shopkeepers in town, because they claim that they're paying more for their water as citizens of the town than the people buying bulk water supplies. And that's something may be apocryphal, but I think it's worth looking into. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, John. I want to open it up to anybody that hasn't asked any questions yet, or would like to jump in there, ask any of the candidates a question.
Hey, Gunnar.
Yeah.
Gunnar, can I get in and fact check a little bit? Can I get in there and fact check? Actually, the city of Cave Junction's water rates are amongst the lowest in the Rogue Valley and the Illinois Valley. They're in the Rogue Valley area.
It
The
is
city of Cave Junction's water rates are cheaper than anywhere else.
really
Just for a fact, just a fact check there, that it's cheaper than anywhere else.
okay. I
Matter
think
of fact, we're probably amongst the cheapest in the state.
okay, because I think was in the debate, the last debate, that the water rates are pretty high for our area here. So, but I want to defer to
No, a candidate in the last debate said that it was higher. But if you go and you look at the actual water rates for towns of our size, we're actually one of the cheapest in the state. So it was bad information. You call it disinformation or misinformation. It's incorrect, no matter how you look at it. The city of Cave Junction water rates are amongst the cheapest in the state of Oregon, especially for towns of our size.
No, they're not.
Those are facts.
Can I respond to
You're
that?
entitled to.
respond.
Oh.
Go ahead, John.
Thank you. I don't think I said what Dan Mancuso claiming I said. What I said was that A, we could have a graduated supply, and B, I said that the water rate hike of a couple of years ago has caused a lot of people, I mean, I hear it, they complain to me about it still, a lot of people to say, well, you know, it feels as though I'm paying more than the bulk water people are. And that's something which could be researched perhaps.
Okay, I'd like to open it up to, there's a few people that haven't chimed in or asked any questions or participated. We have Sherry Johnson, we have Michelle Binker, we have Sandra there too. And we have somebody on iPod, I don't know who that is. So, Sherry, hey,
I'm unmuted now.
yeah, you are.
Oh, okay. So you can't hear me yelling at my kids. Okay, that's good. No, I don't have any questions right now. I'm just listening in, trolling.
Okay, Michelle, do you have any questions for the candidates?
I do not have any questions for the candidates. I'm happy just to troll like Sherry and listen in. Thank you.
Cool, yeah, thanks for being here. Well, how about we open it up for questions for each other? So I'll start with Meadow. Do you have any questions for any of the other candidates?
Oh, not right at the moment. If somebody has one burning, let them answer it and I'll think about that. I was trying to calculate our water rates per gallon.
Tina, do you have any questions?
Why don't we let Chris go next?
Okay, Chris, do you have any questions for anybody?
You know, I thought I was here to answer questions, so I really haven't given much thought to that.
Okay, all
No.
right. Well, then I will lead with a question. How do you see the CJ City Council and the city with the process of representative government? How are you involving and engaging your constituents in participation in city council? And I'll start with Mayor Martel.
Would you repeat the question, please?
How do you see representative government with the CJ City government and the CJ City Council? What is the kind of relationship that you would like to see? Would you like to see people coming in and participating in city government? And what is the role of city government in relation to its constituency?
Well, if I understand the question right, I think what you're asking is, do we want public participation? I'm always welcome to feedback that people have, but the city government is not participatory government. That's why the council is elected, because they're the ones that represent people. They listen. We have public comments. People have an opportunity to give feedback. I'm always listening if people have questions. But I think that the council is there to represent the people. So I'm not sure I understand what the question was, but that's what I think I
Are you
answered.
interested in inviting the people, especially on major decisions, like for instance, the city charter? Would you invite the people into a town hall and to?
Oh, absolutely. You would have to. I mean, because the city charter is something that the residents actually vote on. So of course we would want input from them. That is a long process doing a city charter revision. And you absolutely would have to have input into it.
How
I
about,
thought you were talking about the day-to-day stuff.
right, yeah, well, there's always there's a discretionary area there, but as far as where it goes with large land, public land issues and stuff like that, it's actually required under statutes that you have public participation.
Well, all our meetings are required to have public not necessarily public participation, but the public have to have an opportunity to be there and listen. It's not a participatory government style where we're getting feedback from the audience while we're conducting business or creating ordinances.
Yeah.
You know, I'll step in here if I could real quick. So it's, you know, for me, you're elected for a reason and you have to earn the trust of the people. And so that's where it starts. If everything was bring the entire city in and everybody vote right then and there on different items, there would be no reason to have a council. That's not government. And so I think that the job of being a council member, if I get elected, this is what I will be doing, is putting that work in privately, putting that work in with the people of the town, asking the questions, getting feedback from them, and then taking the feedback that I have from them and taking that to the council meetings. That's how we represent, getting out there, communicating, getting a feel of what the people want, and then relaying that message back to the other council members and the mayor and the city as a whole. So it's getting out there, doing the legwork, communicating with the people of Cave Junction, and then relaying that message back. It's not having 2,500 people in the city hall all right then and there. You're never going to accomplish anything. That's why the government's set up the way it's set up.
Can I jump in?
Yeah, go ahead, Tina.
Actually, to take off from what Jesse was saying, I mean, most of you know me and you know that I'm belong to everything and I'm always in meetings and going places. But I think that's our job, is to be out in the community. You know, like for example, when the COVID testing was happening at Jubilee Park, I was over there talking to John and Christine and other friends that were in line. I wanted to see how it was being handled, how fast it was, how long they had to wait in line, and listen to the people that were there from our community. Recently, I've been talking to Meadow about ways that we can make ourselves more accessible as a city to the community. And one of the ideas I suggested was that since everybody here in the community is so connected through social media, is by having a presence on, say, on Facebook, having a City of Cave Junction page, and posting things on there that, you know, updates of upcoming meetings or upcoming activities or things that we're talking about, and giving our community the opportunity to communicate with us as well. We do encourage our residents to come to the city council meetings, come to the Parks and Rec Commission meetings. You know, those are open to the public. Right now, obviously, they're not held in the city hall because, you know, of the pandemic, so we're doing it on Zoom, but that information is out there. It's put out there in the newspaper by law. We have to have it posted. But I think that by having a little bit more of a social media presence, I think that will give us the opportunity to reach out just a little bit further than the way we are right now. So that there's ideas, we're talking about them, and I think we're going to push them going forward.
Thank you, Tina. Chris, you want to take this question? How do you see local government and participation with its constituents, especially on large issues?
So first, I think we all agree that leadership is where someone such as ourselves has ideas on what ought to get done, and then they put those out in front of the public, and if the public agrees with it, they support them, and if they don't, they don't. Simple as that. once those folks are elected based on those principles and based on those ideas and based on those concepts that they're interested in doing, it's the responsibility of the elected officials to then carry that forward, but to carry that forward in an open and transparent and public manner. And I'm careful to parse the difference between public and the word participation. As he said, we can't have a direct democracy where everyone's just, up there swinging the gavel. Nothing would ever get done. It's hard enough to get a handful of people to work together to, achieve stuff. But when it comes time to dealing with land use issues, that is probably the most important time when there can be public participation, where there may be committees, there may be town halls, there may be informational meetings. Oftentimes the most important area that a local municipality works in, and that's why a lot of land use issues are the purview of the municipality. It's not always the case that Salem or DC, Washington, DC is coming in and telling us our land use issues. It's because it affects us directly. In terms of governance things, such as budgets, charters, that sort of thing, it directly affects how the government works for the people. And I think that they absolutely need to be brought into the process, again, in a way that's wieldy, that's not unwieldy. It needs to be done in a strategic and a thoughtful and considerate manner. In terms of day-to-day process, I am a fan of open, transparent participation insofar as public comments are provided, insofar as both positive and negative critique is received from the community to the elected officials. And it's my personal preference to adopt the way other counties and cities do their public comment. Josephine County does it well. They do it for each major action item that gets voted on. Plus, at the end, you're allowed to be able to comment. Maybe there are not a lot of things that Dan Mancuso and I agree on, but I definitely support his request to go back and hold public comment the way it used to be a couple of years ago. I believe that allowing the public to speak and to feel like they've been heard is probably one of the most important activities we can do in our meetings, because I know what it feels like to be governed. And I know that a lot of people would like to feel like their officials are listening to them. And so that's what I have to say. Thanks.
Chris, I don't think they have public comment after every agenda item in Grants Pass.
Right. No, usually on significant issues, they always, the CJ City Council often had a public comment period after the stuff was hashed out with those that were dealing with the public lands issues. Say that again?
I was asking Chris, doesn't he, it was my understanding that land use is a state thing.
Absolutely. It's a state, more regulated by the states than the cities. And there's a very prescribed process that the city has to follow when we're doing land use planning. And there is a lot of input.
Under Senate Bill 100, it says that all programs in cities and counties adopted comprehensive plans that meet mandatory state guidelines. So everything land usage wise is controlled directly by the state first.
So I was specifically referring to how we make up our own comprehensive plans, about how we decide where mixed use, commercial, residential, where different types of land uses are sorted out within the city. The county for instance, has decided where its rural residential is going to be, where its commercial is going to be, where its light industrial is going to be. That's what I'm talking about. And it's also what I'm referring to is how we use the land, how we use where we put our parks, and that sort of thing. The cities and counties get to make their decisions as to how they're going to parcel out where the different land uses are. And that's what I'm referring to. I'm not talking about Senate Bill 100 for sure.
I know. I think that's still relative to what you're saying. The state still has a controlling factor in that. It's not 100% up to the city. It still has to meet state guidelines and is still state controlled first before it ever hits city.
Well, usually the state statutes sets the baseline for what the parameter of the local municipalities can do, you know. So you can be more strict than the state statute, but you can't be less strict.
Well, and again, what I'm talking about, maybe it's helpful for me to try to be a little more clear, is that the comprehensive plan is basically our urban development plan, and how do we want to shape the city. That's our prerogative to design that plan. It's been around for a long time. It needs to be updated, in my opinion. It's not an insignificant task, but it needs to be revised, and there's been enough time that's gone by that we need to look at some of the decisions and see what is the best way for the city to grow in the next 20 to 25 years. And that's our choice in how we use the land. I've been to so many of the Josephine County Commissioners meetings, and I'm willing to stand corrected, but I'm pretty sure that when they have action items that are getting voted on by them, they hold a public comment for those action items. And then at the very end of every meeting, there's a chance to make a general comment. I've been there before, and I've been able to make a comment on 2 or 3.
If I may jump in here, the way the county does it is you're only allowed to make public comment unless it's a land use issue, or if it's an ordinance about to be passed. It's just not the same. It's just everything Chris is saying is it's not really accurate. It's just not accurate.
Well, they have the county has discretionary on that, but if it's affecting a local community or something like that, then they are obligated for discretion, for comments and discretion. And you know.
No, that's not right. No, actually, that's inaccurate. That's inaccurate. You guys, look, I'm just here to fact check tonight. And the county, you don't get to speak for every action item. You only get to speak unless it's a public meeting, if it's a land use hearing, unless it's a public hearing, like a land use hearing, there is no public comment in advance of that. Look, you guys can sit here and waste your time and tell each other how great you are, but the reality of it is the information you're giving is inaccurate and you're wrong. So I'm going to bid you all a farewell, and you guys can keep going down your rabbit hole, telling each other all this bad information. And again, I don't know if it's disinformation or misinformation, regardless, accurate. So.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Good night. All right, well, we'll go ahead and do a wrap up. How do you feel that the popularity of the CJ City Council and the city is with its constituents? Are people excited about what's going on in the city, or are they keeping away? Chris,
jump in. I'll go first. I think the constituents, the residents within CJ City proper, are very excited about what's happening. They see things are actually going on, and for a long time, I don't believe they felt that it was serving much of a purpose. Although the city council, I've covered it for as a reporter for a while before I joined the city council. So I know what was happening as far as, permits and ordinances and all that. But now when I talk to constituents and I engage with them either in person or on the phone, they're very excited about it. Initially, they're concerned because they don't know if A, they can ask these questions, and B, if we'll actually answer them. But I think that they're very enthusiastic about it, and I think they're enthusiastic about the people who are holding the offices for the most part.
Thank you, Tina. Chris, do you want to speak on that? What is your experience?
I walked around to about 850 houses. I wasn't out there knocking on doors. I was putting out door hangers, and I occasionally came across people if they were in their garages or in their yards or something. It's a pandemic, so it's not like, it's a great opportunity to go and canvass people. But I may have spoken to about 10 or 12% is my guess. And first, I'll tell you that in the same way that neither Meadow or I were able to answer the name of the Grants Pass mayor, it's my feeling that the vast majority of the population, the voting population, the residents in the city, have no idea who actually runs, who actually runs the place. It's just not on their forefront of their minds. You could ask them, list all the Supreme Court, justices, and they, maybe they pick some of them out, maybe they would not, but they don't know who's running the city. So there's no personal feelings towards anyone in particular. They're not like, oh, well, this person this or that person that. But what I did pick up is there's a huge amount of dissatisfaction. And that might be displaced frustration in their own lives about how they feel. But when asked about, or when they start talking about the city, they're not content. They're not happy. They don't like the public safety issues. They don't like the water rates. They don't like the homeless problems. They don't like the people going up and down the streets, peeling out their tires. There's any number of concerns I think you probably could find in most cities that I heard the people saying. But generally, their opinion about government is pretty negative. And it's not fair to generalize and say that's the way everybody is or anything, but I was surprised at what I found to be not a generally positive view. Would it change if I was elected mayor? I have no idea. None whatsoever. I would like to try to address the concerns they have, and I'm sure everyone else would too. I'm sure we all share that same thing. Thanks.
So an open house for them?
Yeah, I'd like to go next.
Go ahead.
Look, I guess I have a very different experience than Chris had. And I don't know if it's because I elicit different things from people when I talk to them. And I actually did talk to a lot of people. I knocked on doors. I wore my mask. I stayed 6 feet away. But I had a lot of conversations with people. And I was surprised how positive people were, actually. They're interested. They wanted to know what I stood for. They complimented on, they think the City Hall is doing a good job. I've stood outside grocery outlets with my sign and talked to people, and I'd say 1 out of 10 was like, oh, I don't like what's going on, or something type of thing. And I think our community is a lot more positive than disgruntled. And yes, there's always people that are upset or disgruntled about anything, life in general. But I maybe didn't knock on 850 doors, but I knocked on quite a few. And so I just, I guess I'll just disagree. I think people are, they have their issues, and I listen to them and I try to address them. But I wouldn't say people are really unhappy, or the majority, as what I was hearing Chris say.
All right, Jesse, how do you feel about your concern?
There's excitement. For me, I'm hearing excitement, but I'm also hearing a lot of disappointment. I think this is the first time in a little while that we're seeing a lot of competition between the different options that we have. I'm hearing a massive amount of unhappiness when it comes to two of the candidates that are running for city council. The fact that they put a paragraph in a voter's pamphlet And then outside of that, can't be touched. Questions can't be answered. We have no idea if they're following Christopher's lead or if he's coming up with the team motto. We just don't know. We have heard nothing about them. We haven't heard what they would do if they were to get elected. We haven't heard what they stand for. They haven't heard what's being done right. We haven't heard what's being done wrong. We have heard nothing from two of the candidates. And then to come out, I do believe you put in your thing today in your post, Gunter, that they came out and said that they were on hunting trips and the city knows who they are. That's an unfair statement. That's an unfair statement when you're trying to get in to be an elected official, paid or not. Paid or not, if you're going to come in, you have to be all in. You have to be invested in what you're going to do. And I find it disrespectful that they've stayed so far away and allowed their platform to bind to Chris's and trust it. I hope that the people of Cave Junction see through it. It's important that they see through it and ask the questions. Ask. I have answered every question that's been posted to me. Every single one, without a doubt, I have answered. And if I wasn't clear, I have re-answered. And if someone has a problem with that, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with people that don't agree with me not voting for me. If they feel like Joel is the right fit blindly, then that's what it's going to be. I know that people can tell that I'm passionate, and I'm extremely passionate about what I want to do. I'm committed. I'm disrespected. I feel horribly disrespected that I cut time away from my family to come out here and do this again tonight to have a candidate again not show up. I'm a family man too, 4 kids, a wife, dedicating a lot of time to making our city into what I feel it needs to be for our residents, for our youth, for our elderly. I just wish that every candidate would do the same, and we're not getting that. We're getting that from Chris. I can tell that Chris is working his butt off, but the other 2 candidates are not. With that, I'll bid goodnight.
Yeah, thank you, Jesse. Really appreciate you being on here. Chris, did you have any response in regards to the other 2 position candidates?
You know, I mean, it may sound ironic, but they can speak for themselves. From what I know, they are not really inclined to, you know, want to have to get out there and do a bunch of campaigning. I think that they believe that people know who they are. They're, you know, one member is the Clouser Drilling family, the other is Ace Hardware, and if you want to go talk to Joel, I mean, just go buy some batteries, you know. They're well known, and I think that they're unconcerned about having to get out there and put themselves in front of people. And, you know, if you like them and you want them to represent you, go right ahead. Tina and Jesse have, you know, gone to the mat and have campaigned relentlessly for like the last month or 2, and that's your preference. It's, you know, in this campaign, I think we each have our own styles, and we each gone out there and done what we feel is right. And I will generally try, even though it's a struggle. I think we all maybe face the struggle, maybe not, but to just focus on my own attitude, my own behavior, and what it is that I can do. And I'm happy for that, you know. I definitely want to say, you know, we all care about this town, and I hope we all care about each other, and that when all is said and done, we will work to unite the city and work to unite along with each other. And I will say again that if Meadow, you win, you will receive a call from me, and I will congratulate you warmly.
Well, with that, I want to thank you all. Very grateful that you were able to come in at this last moment to participate with this.
Shows how much we care, Gunther.
Tina, you got something you want to say?
No, I was just saying it shows how much we care.
Yes,
I think we all do, yes.
that's what I'm saying. You all of you put your differences aside and for your community, and I'm in love with that.
Gunter, thank you again. Tina, Meadow, have a great night. Christopher, have a good night.
Yeah.
Everybody, same
Guys,
here.
take care. Have a good night. Thanks, everyone.
Okay.
Good
Good
night.
night, everybody. Thanks, Gunther.
All right. Have a great evening. I'll be doing town halls every Thursday, so we'll have another topic next Thursday. I'll get that out soon.
Thanks, Spencer. Good night.
You're welcome. Good evening. God bless.